Well, good evening and welcome to What, How, Why Wednesdays with Dr. K. I'm Tamara G, co host of the show, and so happy to be here tonight with Dr. K. And we are going to be talking about powerful Black men in medicine. What does it take? All part of June and Men's Health Month. We're just wrapping it up. So we wanted to do it with some powerful Black men in medicine. But before we go any further, would love to have Dr. K. Dr. Kendra Outler. She is an anesthesiologist in the Baltimore area, DC area, and we are so happy that we're here again for another What, How, Why Wednesdays, right, Dr. K?
These Wednesdays keep coming.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're so happy because we've been doing this. We started in May doing the IG Lives, and thank you to our partners here at blackdoctor.org and our tech, Ellis Dean, for helping us today with this as well. And we're just going to keep it, like you said, these Wednesdays just keep on coming. So we're going to keep on doing this. We have some great guests tonight. And without any further ado, remember, if you have any questions for our guests, our two powerful Black men in medicine, you can put those in the chat and we'll get to those towards the end of the show. But we hope you'll stay with us and we hope that you will be enlightened and informed.
Hi, welcome this evening. And Tamara, thank you so much for that introduction. We have an exciting show that I spoke to the executive producer, Dean Ellis Dean, I call him Ellis Dean, about with blackdoctor.org. And I said, listen, we have to have a show this month on powerful Black men in medicine and what does it take to lead and what does it take to be a leader. And he said, Kendra, that's a great show. Dr. K, he's like, that's an awesome show. And I thought of I could only think of two men that I could really just bring together that would elude this topic and explain it very well. They are two leaders that I highly respect, and not only I respect, but the medical community at large. And so we have tonight two of the finest leaders in medicine that I can think of. And that is Dr. Ron Bailey will be the first. He's the department head of psychiatry. I have spoken to Ron, and I call him Ron Bailey, Dr. Ron, so many times, but I always seem to miss something on his resume. So let me get this, let me add one more thing to his list of accomplishments. Not only do we know him as a staunch Morehouse man, we know him as the 113th president of the National Medical Association. He is now the first Black chairman of LSU Health Science Center Department of Psychiatry. But there's one other thing that he did before he got to LSU, not one, but let me tell you what I forget to say, and that is that he was the professor of psychiatry and associate dean of clinical education at Charles Drew University School of Medicine in Los Angeles. He was also the chief medical officer of Kendrick Community Health Systems in Los Angeles, which is a psychiatric hospital. And he continues to wear these multiple hats no matter where he goes. And so, Dr. Ron Bailey, I would welcome you to the show. You've been a fine example of leadership and being a powerful Black man in medicine. And so, yes, you deserve and to be heard. You are also an author of multiple books, one of which is of great value as we talk about gun violence, which you've done before. But the name of that book is At Gunpoint, and Dr. Ron Bailey is a renowned expert trying to talk to multiple communities, multiple media outlets about the gun violence. And he wrote this book years ago, right, Dr. Bailey?
2018, yes.
And not only that, you continue to do this research. So when we're talking about, powerful Black men in medicine, they have a vision. They are leaders. They wear multiple hats. And so we welcome you today. And I hope that I trust that you had a wonderful Father's Day. So welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Kendra, I think in Tamara had a wonderful Father's Day. In fact, I'll share it today. June 29th is the second birthday of my first grandchild. So good Father's Day recently and a good day as well. I likewise enjoyed being on your show. I think you bring a very powerful and accurate and empirically based message, I think, to your listeners. That's what I think we need in all communities, but especially communities, I think, of color.
Now, without further ado, because this next guest is a military man, so we know the time and structure is of importance to him as well. So, and I may have to cheat because his accomplishments are they're extensive both in the civilian and in the military practice. And I happen to have be in a military environment for my work. So let me say that we are very honored to bring your friend, Dr. Bailey, Dr. Norvell Coutts. He is a physician and he is a retired military officer. He currently serves as the CEO of Holy Cross Healthcare Center here in the Maryland area. Prior to that, he was the medical officer in the United States military. He's mostly known too as his work overseas, being the command surgeon for the let me see now, I got to get this right, Regional Health Command Europe, okay? And many know him for his outstanding leadership as he closed Walter Reed Military Hospital in DC. I would say that hospital was moved to the Navy Bethesda location, and we are the largest military medicine command center for the Western Hemisphere. So I want to say thank you for Dr. Coutts accepting my invitation to come on the show and be united with his friend who's seen numerous times. And so Dr. Coutts, please join us on What How Why Wednesday on this fabulous show with Dean Ellis. I always say Dean Ellis. It's Ellis Dean.
Well, thank you.
And Ellis Dean, he is the executive producer, the extraordinary of Facebook Live for blackdoctor.org. So thank you so much for always being open to my ideas and welcome us to the show. Thank you.
No worries. Look, as long as it's spelled right on my check, I'm okay.
I know that's right, Ellis.
So, we'll start us off because I think both of you can talk eloquently for hours about leadership. And so I'm just going to get right to it. I mean, I will say, Dr. Bailey, you saw the light early and you went straight to an HBCU. So I'm going to cut to Dr. Coutts and I want you to tell us this interesting story about how you saw the light in terms of changing schools and where you felt your most value in terms of education. And both of you can sound in on what it means to go to an HBCU. General?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I started out my story starts in a military high school in Richmond, Virginia. I always wanted to be in the Army. My dad used to talk about Pershing, Patton, MacArthur, duty, honor, country, all that stuff. So that's all I ever knew. But my dad was also a doctor, and I wanted to be like him. So I knew that I wanted to be both military and medicine. But then I got an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point. And so I went and I said, this is a great start. I'll get great training. I'll go to medical school. Lo and behold, I got there and found that I was number 504 out of a class of about 1,100. And they were only letting 2% of the students, the top 2%, apply to medical school. So I weighed, I weighed everything and I said, this is not for me. I'm pre-med in engineering school. So something is wrong with this. Mm-hmm. So I made the decision to leave. I was going to go to school in Tennessee following some of my friends from West Point. And my mom said, oh no, if you're going to leave West Point, you're going to come and go to Howard, which is a family school. And I have to tell you, that was the best decision. Always listen to your mother, right? That was the best decision that I could have ever made, because not only was I surrounded by so many outstanding African-American students, but there were so many who were so much smarter than I was. So it sort of ramped up my competitive edge, and it gave me a real sense of pride, enhanced sense of pride about being, a Black man wanting to go into medicine with so many other people there who were also going into medicine, law, dentistry, everything under the sun. So it was a great decision to switch, and I would tell anyone, go to an HBCU.
It was where your mom's money was going too. That's
oh, that too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clip that out. I'm gonna clip that out and sell that to Howard as a promo video.
And Dr. Bailey, you left Beaumont, Texas, and you found your way all the way to the ATL, and you left a state that has some HBCUs to go to Morehouse. So what was the decision to go to Morehouse about?
Well, similar to Van, both my parents very much in a leadership mode, spoke often about going to the HBCU. My father's a 1962 graduate of Prairie View. My mother's a 1962 graduate of Texas Southern. Come from communities with a great amount, I think, of African-American educational strength and support. A lot of teachers, a lot of educators in my hometown and our community. So I probably always thought that I'd like to go to HBCU. Played a lot of basketball and football back in those days, so I kind of got into a mode of looking at going to bigger schools for sports. But very happy I ended up going to an HBCU, Morehouse College, really for sports, I think, and also not only academics, but I think because Morehouse at that point was probably putting more black males in the med school than any other school. I think Xavier has us beat now. I'll give Xavier big kudos for that.
Right.
The clear issue for me, some I think Van's comments, the reality is I came out of Morehouse College an absolutely unequivocally and relentlessly focused, proud black man.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you come out of Morehouse any way other than that. People are regularly telling you every single good thing that exists about being black and male and alive anywhere in this world. I don't know how better to say it. I think because of that, you have a lot of friendships and strength of relationships that I think goes a long way. And it goes without saying that in many other settings in our world and our society, that may not be the experience, unfortunately, for too many other persons, especially young men of color, and what you have access to in other media entities and the like. So it certainly, I think, shot a very different message on how we should think about ourselves. That goes a long way in strengthening and building your self-esteem, and it stays with you for a lifetime.
Dr. Coots, you know, I've heard you say something that I really want you to not shy away from this evening. There was a particular environment at West Point that you had to also make a decision, not just because of the class ranking, but you have been very vocal, and you've given some excellent talks, particularly to even at the hospital within the military conversations about your experience at West Point. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, thanks. That's sort of a painful memory, but you know, I went to high school in Richmond, Virginia, so the capital of the Confederacy. And when I got to West Point, I felt that there was far more racism in 1976 at the United States Military Academy than I had ever experienced Wade-Dixie. And so that was one of the decisions that I had to weigh as well. I mean, I was called, you know, damn black smack. I was told that, you know, there were no black students that ever graduated from my company, which was F1, and there wouldn't be my year either. And so there was relentless pressure on me as an African American, and I was the only African American in my company at that time too. There were only 50 black cadets per class year, and so it was. It was hard. You didn't see yourself coming and going, and so you had to sneak around and join different clubs to have that African American camaraderie. So that probably did factor into my decision to leave at the end of the first year as opposed to leaving at the end of the second year.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, because I think that there are other students that may be struggling in what we call these privileged white institutions, and I think, you know, Dean, you have a young son, and I'm sure you're going to be having to make that decision soon. Are you having these conversations about what you think your son and you know, what you would want for your son?
Yeah, my daughter is she's in college now, and she went to a large white institution. Mm-hmm. And my son, he plays baseball, and we know that the best baseball mm-hmm. schools are particularly white institutions. And so my family is full of HBCU graduates. Like, mm-hmm. Like my cousin just finished his orthopedic surgery residency. He's a Howard grad, Howard Med School grad. My other cousin is a Howard DDS, lives right there at the DC area. My younger sister went to Hampton. I went to Florida A&M. My older sister. Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, we run the whole gamut. Parents went to South Carolina State, so we know what it's like. The HBCU life is like, and so to have my children, or at least one of my children, not choosing HBCU, it was tough because we understand, and some of the things that she's struggling with at Auburn, and even though she's enjoying the time there, some of the things she's struggling with is finding her tribe, mm-hmm. that group and finding the place where she fits in. And I'm like, I didn't have that problem. It was like I walked in, it was, you hooked up with your roommate, y'all found a couple more friends, and it was it. That's what it was.
Well, I was going to say, as a person who attended a PWI, predominantly white institution, University of Texas, and I know that Dr. Bailey is also a graduate of UT as well, so hook 'em. We found each other because, it was only 1,000 of us on campus. So you definitely find each other. And you also find, as Dr. Coots mentioned, that you are the only one in the classroom, or maybe there's two of you in the English auditorium or the math class or whatever. But you know what you're there to do, which is get your education.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't you shut all that down. You don't let that stop you. They can have their own views, but guess what? I'm a graduate of the University of Texas. I know a lot of people who attended the University of Texas, and I'm a graduate of the University of Texas. So, if your kids know what they're doing, your daughter's at Auburn, she knows the assignment. She's supposed to graduate and get out. So, and she'll find her friends. It'll come.
Yes, and I'm a graduate of Agnes Scott College in Emory, so I have both of those experiences. But when I got my master's of public health, I found my way over to take a community health class at Morehouse School of Medicine, and so I found my tribe over there anyway. So that was, I straddled both fences, and I also took a class at Morehouse. The second question I wanted to talk to you about is, you both have combined. Not only did you do medicine after finishing school, you all found very interesting ways to combine, and layer your medical careers. Dr. Bailey, you decided to do psychiatry, and then you took it one step further and said, I want to be a forensic psychiatrist, and talk about narrowing, the number of Black, professionals around you. You're now in this area of saying, okay, I'm the only Black male, particularly focusing in, because I don't think there's a lot of Black forensic psychiatrists. So please talk to us about what that choice, the decision to become a forensic psychiatrist, and why you made that choice and where that has led you.
I'll try to be brief, but I'd love to say two things. On your last point, we don't often get a chance to kind of give a public acknowledgement, but I want to give that to Van Coots. The idea that he spent time at and did work at the military academy is very important. And at times you don't realize how important that is. I've got a son. My boy's 26. He just graduated the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Right. He's only shipped to Gunston Hall in Helsinki, Finland, or someplace right now. Hopefully, they're protecting us as a deterrent from war. But he spoke clearly to me during the years he was there, because I'm not military, and although a lot of military in my family, none have gone to any of these academies. A whole different ballgame. But spoke, I think, articulately to me over those 5 years, about the work that I think people like Van performed in going. It's a fight. And we as Blacks have to be successful in every area, and you have to get in and you have to kick doors down. And as you're knocking doors down and kicking them open, it makes that door a little bit more open when other people tend to get there. Like Tamara's point about going to UT, I went to UT, we share a lot, graduated in 1990. The first Black graduated UT in 1958, UT Galveston Mayor School, afterwards to Morehouse. And for 14 straight years, there was one Black person in the class, and they called HE2 picks for a long time. But when I got in, we had 19, and there was an opportunity to bring some people together and provide some degree, I think, of moral support. So commend you, Vance, for that work. My son appreciated it because he didn't have anybody to talk about what that was like. But I can imagine how tricky it could be. I love your comment that at times you go to a place further north than when you live and get more racism and discriminatory bias, I think, than otherwise. On the second point, Kendra, I would just simply say I clearly think that we have to all be intentional in our approach. Make a goal to try to rise to a level, I think, of academic and professional success, recognizing that at every step along the way, somebody's perhaps trying, or some group or some entity, to kind of cut you off at the knees. That's unfortunate, but the reality, I think, in many regards of what we do. And I think it's a kind of you grow up your lawn, so to speak, fight diligently, be the best you can, and try to come to work every day, with your and put your best foot forward, recognizing that it's a marathon, and you kind of keep working and kind of work through. I would say that you also write this issue about being in the South at SEC school. Really, none of these schools have had either any or many African Americans in these top roles of chair and dean. This has been a 30-year trajectory for me. I finished UTMB in 1990, 32 years ago. Got this dean job a year or two ago, and now I need to do something with it. I need to do some things that help open up doors for others, which I think are the key for all of us in these various professions. So I thank you for giving us a chance to discuss these issues tonight.
Specifically, Dr. Bailey, the decision to become a forensic psychiatrist, people don't share with us what that means.
Again, forensic means medical legal. Many of us, like myself, start off in life, you're in high school and you can't decide whether you want to go pre-law or pre-medicine. Is actually how this thing very often happens. I got to med school and enjoyed medicine. It was pre-med, went to med school throughout, but I always had an inkling in the back of my head that I liked legal aspects of medicine. clearly psychiatry and pathology are the two areas of medicine that are the most inclined to a legal orientation. Pathologists become coroners, and forensic psychiatrists do evaluations and write reports and testify in court. And when I did a few of those as a fourth-year medical student, I just loved it, and I've enjoyed it ever since. I've been doing that again for really 3 decades now.
So you
get a chance to be involved in the criminal justice system, and
right.
we need more professionals of all backgrounds, I think, in that area of activity.
And you did some work with the Harris County district. Is that we call the Harris County Police Department?
Yes, I've done a lot of work in that regard. I've done these police evaluations. People talk about profiling. Much of my work has been evaluations of people. You write a report, and then the report goes on for a determination of everything from competency to the insanity defense to child custody to pre and post sentence evaluations. Did a lot of school-based work early in my career. Very often, two boys get in a fight. One, based on his background, goes to see a counselor or psychologist and gets clinical care. It doesn't go in his record, and he gets resources. Money comes to help him. Another kid who's in the same fight has a different color skin. He goes to the Department of Correction, or goes to a jail, or gets a legal record, or gets a pink slip, goes to alternative school. So I learned early on that the subjective nature of how we as professionals of all backgrounds can determine and actually influence the lives of young people is extraordinary. And it's a story we should actually tell. That was one thing that I really liked about being involved in forensic medicine.
That's wonderful. And General Coots, it's been you've had a lot of twists and turns in your career as well. Let me say that your practice in medicine started off as a dermatologist. And let me just say straight into the camera, I was not smart enough to get into dermatology residency, okay? So before you say, his dermatology, that is a highly competitive area, just so the people will know that that's a highly competitive specialty, still is today. And so I thank you for being a dermatologist. You've known some really good friends of mine as well. But then what is so interesting about your career is that you wear another hat. I mean, you have your practice as a practitioner of medicine, but you also have to fulfill a lot of requirements to increase your value to the military, and your role as a military officer also has to be fulfilled. Can you talk about how you evolved into those two roles?
Yeah, so my life is pretty twisty, and I'll sum it up real fast. I did a podcast called War Docs a couple of months ago, and I heard the promo for it and said, listen to the inspirational life story of Dr. Van Coots, left West Point, dropped out of undergrad med school, and yet he's a success. So I see myself as a plugger. First and foremost, I did go to Howard. I did ROTC in my junior year. I just decided to take the MCAT and apply, and I got accepted off the waiting list. So I did withdraw from undergrad, so I didn't get a degree. Went to Howard, spent 3 years there. Terrible test taker when it came to the national boards. I had exam fright, and so I got dismissed school, and the Army called me to active duty. So I spent a few years as a medical supply officer, something that I really didn't want. In the long run, probably enhanced my career and ability once I became a hospital commander. I did get back into medical school because that was always a goal. I started all over again, and then I commissioned back into the medical corps. And so I just really see my life as a plugger. Internship, and then overseas to Korea for a couple of years as a clinic commander. And I applied for derm, didn't get accepted the first year, and said, well, I'm not giving up. I really want to be a dermatologist. Applied the second year and got accepted. And then at some point in time in my career, just like anyone, the Army will tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, would you like to go to this course, the Command and General Staff College? Would you like to go to that course? And I made the decision, well, yeah, I think I would like to, even though I was having fun as a dermatologist clinically. I said, I want to broaden my experiences. And so I went, and every time I did that, another opportunity opened for me. It pulled me more and more out of clinical medicine and more into administrative, but it really started me on that lead ladder, climbing the thing. So if I would say anything to anyone, I would say, the definition of being lucky when your job or an assignment is that you were the only person who was fully qualified. And the only way to be fully qualified is to do all the courses and things you can to purpose job. So in the military, I did everything the military asked me to do. I went to every school they wanted to send me to. And so next thing you know, I'm the deputy commander of a hospital. Next thing you know, I'm the deputy corps surgeon. After that, I'm a clinic commander. Then I'm the hospital commander back up at West Point, of all places. And then the crowning in my career was really being that final commander of Walter Reed Army Mentor. And I was given that job, and my boss called me and said, hey, I want you to think about this. This job could end your career because the Walter Reed scandal had already ended so many careers, but I couldn't think of a better place to be than serving those warriors in a 2-theater war in Iraq and Afghanistan. It was Walter Reed that got me promoted to general, so it really kind of crowned my career. And I think back, and there are people who said, they didn't think I would ever get to general, because I left West Point. So I was one of the chosen, and I chose to leave. And I said, well, it's just a matter of being a plugger and keeping focused, as Ron said, being focused on your career. I was very focused on continuing to move up, and I didn't let anything, even my own previous actions, become an obstacle to my own success.
What do you say to the person that says you got those promotions because you're a Black man in the military and you had certain credentials behind you? What would you say to that person?
I would say I had the credentials, and I just happened to be a Black man.
Okay.
I'm sure that there were times when they were looking for diversity. There's no question about that. But I would say if you put my record up against anyone from the majority group, I'm equivalent, or I outshined them because I worked that much harder. I think as a Black doctor, as a Black anything, as a Black military officer, you have that added weight on your shoulders, and you just have to work harder than everyone else to prove that you are equal or better. And proof was in the pudding, and I made it.
It's funny because a comment was made to me was they let 10 of you all in medical school, and I heard it and I said they let us in. The 10 of us out of 210 at University of Texas Health Science Center San Antonio. I said, so are you telling me I didn't take the MCAT and I didn't apply and I wasn't a math major? I said, okay, so fine. I said, so let's assume they let me in here. I said, to get out, do I not take USMLE 1, 2? Okay, I was just for kicks and giggles. Let's just say they did let me in the side door. Do I still have to come to class and take these tests with you every 6 weeks? I think in Galveston and Howard, they call it Black Monday. I just want to know, if they let me in here, how am I going to get out? Okay. And so, and so you can't change people's opinion, but like you're saying, and like excellence is the bar, getting through these systems. And I was actually given the Dean Award for outstanding service to the university. So I kind of like you and Dr. Bailey and Dr. Coots, you leave the place better. And I think that for your career return as a Brigadier General, you've left the place better. And Dr. Bailey, certainly with your career, you keep leaving each place you've gone to. You've gone to Wake, you've gone to Meharry, you've gone to King Drew, and you actually are returning back to LSU after you started your career there. And you're leaving every time you go and come back, you're leaving it better. And that's the goal. So, as you talk as a father, Dean, I mean, is that your lesson to your son, as a young Black male?
Always. And I'm listening to Dr. Coots' story. When you asked him that question, the first thing I came and said, walk a mile in his shoes. Mm-hmm. If they want to know how he got to where he is, walk a mile in his shoes. Just listening to his story understands how he got to where he is. It wasn't a gift.
Mm-hmm. Right, it wasn't a legacy or anything like that.
Just walk a mile in any Black man's shoes. If you're on the fry station, you got to cook the best fries. Yeah. If you're a janitor, you got to sweep the floor better, because we understand you're going to be last in, first out, right? Yeah. When it comes to any profession. So it's just amazing to me to see how we can live so rent free in the minds of racists, and I'll just say it like that. We live rent free in their minds, and everything that we get is coming to us free of charge. I'm like, do you not understand what's happened from 1619 to now? Like, let me fill you in just a little bit, but notwithstanding, with regards to my son, absolutely, I think it's imperative for me to, and we have to walk that line, especially when you have some certain level of success in life, with your family is you want to say, here it is. You understand you're going to be twice as good always. And that was a lesson that I got from my mom growing up. And I went to predominantly white high schools, and which is why I chose an HBCU, because I was like, hey, I got tired of being the smart black guy. Right? It was like, okay, cool. I appreciate that. That's all good. And then I went to Florida A&M, and I was like, oh, okay, there was a bunch of smart black people. I wasn't the one like they boosted me up to be. But for my son, I think for him, what I try to get him to understand is, treat everybody the same, treat everybody equal, but understand that you're not going to get that reciprocated. And you have to be able to recognize those moments when you're not. You always have to be prepared for those times where the challenge is going to be a little bit harder. And so if he can get that lesson early on in life, and I'll never forget this moment when he was 10 years old and he realized he was going to be treated differently in the classroom. And I had that moment of that tough conversation with him because he didn't understand why things weren't fair. And, how do you explain that to a 10-year-old? Their mind can't even can't even comprehend the heaviness that I'm carrying, at 30, 40 years old. I don't want him to have to carry that at 10. So it's a difficult kind of road to navigate. But I think it's important for all Black fathers, or even if you're just a mentor in somebody's life, to help them navigate that so they can be better people.
But you said the key word, mentorship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe in mentorship.
I think to that too in just a little bit about mentorship. Of course, now I'm going to be like Dr. Coots, every other cousin that he has. Can you look at this and tell me what this is? I got a rash right here. Everybody wants a free dermatologist help. If you are just tuning in, thank you so much for joining us on What, How, Why Wednesdays with Dr. K, Dr. Kendra Outler. I'm your co-host, Tamara G from 101.5 Light FM. This is presented by myuzima.org, and we are talking about powerful Black men in medicine. If you're just joining us, Powerful Black Men in Medicine, what does it take? We have retired Brigadier General Dr. Norvell Van Coots. He is the president and CEO of Holy Cross Health. We also have Dr. Ron Kennedy Bailey from Louisiana State University. He is the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry, two very high-powered doctors. I wanted to ask this question, and we'll get started with this one with Dr. Bailey. Truly, what does it take? I know we've talked about the hard work. We talked about you got to be better. Ellis just mentioned that. But what does it take to rise to the height of your career, or any career for that matter, particularly when you are the head of the Department of Psychiatry? That's a lot on your shoulders there. So we'll start with you, Dr. Bailey, on that.
Well, I'll mention four things briefly. I think clearly goes without saying, Tamara, as you point out, the reality is, I think for all of us, you put a lot of work in, you put a lot of hours in, and one tries to be as strong as you can academically, I think, as everyone in the academic discipline. But I think it does take more for an African American. I clearly think that for me, having not only mentorship, but really persons who were really willing to kind of go the extra mile to ensure that I heard them in an effective way, that I appreciated and benefited from some of their past experiences. At times, some persons don't share that information that may be a bit embarrassing or uncomfortable if they had an adverse event. I was fortunate to have many African American men, but not all, that were willing to share, I think, really in-depth details of many of their experiences that kind of help me, know something before it comes. Avoid, I think, some of the pitfalls that can befall anyone in life. But I think particularly those of us who come from groups that have historically been disenfranchised and marginalized, I think really throughout all of American society, especially when you're really challenged for, as I think Dr. Outler pointed out, these high levels of success with your chairman or a president or a leader or a CEO of some company, what the case may be. I think the third thing goes without saying is family and friends and support for when things don't go well. Kendra knows I'm very good friends with my college roommate. He's a physician as well. And throughout life, when things have kind of been adverse for one of us, we've talked, and he has an older brother. I'm an only child, so I feel like I got two. His older brother has two younger brothers, because I appreciated some of his older brother's advice. And one time his comment was, "You don't think that you're alone in having this area of difficulty. Perhaps it may seem unfair, but you really won't find another successful African man who hadn't really been through one of these." Similarly inconsequential to some, but magnificently important to me to hear at those times that you got to keep on forging through. That others who have been as successful as this guy has been, he's a physician himself, had also gone through some potholes and road along the way. And then perhaps it really wasn't your fault, but you still have to kind of keep on moving ahead. Really, the fourth and final thing I'll say is I do think that we have to appreciate that in this regard of success, life to me is kind of like a pyramid or a triangle. And as you move higher, you know, the spots get smaller and the number of chairs around the table, I think, decrease or decline. So one does have to kind of find an area of expertise. So I appreciated Kendrala's comment that for me, going into forensics was, magnificently important. I think it allowed me early in my career, probably 25 years ago, in some regards, to separate myself from others who are equally good in general psychiatry. And that you did that well after you'd done general medicine. I think it also gave me a chance to bring forth hopefully another area, another skill of expertise. And for me, that was public speaking. Because if you're in forensic psychiatry, not only do you have to write reports, you have to write well, but you have to articulate, I think, the narrative in your message. And that's not something that all psychiatrists do or do well. So I do think that thinking early on, if you aspire to a leadership, for what are your areas of strengths, what may be some of your unique areas of expertise, I think is key. And then working to develop those areas conjointly while you're accomplishing the basics in your discipline, I think can be another area of importance as you try to move forward.
By the way, loving the University of Texas diploma right behind you there.
I am right.
That's right. Dr. Aller can do that too. And I'm going to ask that same question to Dr. Coots, because one thing that I noticed with both of you and Dr. Bailey, the question once again was, what does it take to rise to the height of your career or any career? You guys have moved around a lot. You didn't just stay in one place. You have been all over the world. You've been in different states, cities. You just didn't stay where you were.
Dr. Cooper?
Yeah, I'll say, first, being a military guy, I did in my 36-year career in the Army, I did 19 moves. So I packed up the house and moved 19 times. I spent 2 years in Asia. I spent 10 years off and on in Germany and in Europe. I spent a year in Afghanistan. So yeah, absolutely. You have to be prepared to move. Sometimes you got to go to grow. I always tell you can't stay in one place and expect to grow. Sometimes you have to move. I think for me in your career, it's sort of stick-to-itiveness. And I divide it into two things. I say it's self and others that you have to depend on to go. So first and foremost, you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, why would you ever expect anyone else to ever believe in you? And the second is you have to believe in the power of your dreams. You never let go of your dreams, and you work as hard as you can to make your dreams come true. So you learn those lessons that life teaches you. You make your mistakes. You try not to make them again. You learn from them. You don't listen to haters, people who would hold you back because they don't have any influence on your career whatsoever. And you learn to go around obstacles and get over them, under them, whatever it takes to get by them. And sometimes as you're doing that, you have to learn, to get out of your own way too, and stop being an obstacle to your own success. And then along the way, people have to help you too. I mean, people helped me in my career. I had mentors, and I don't know what I would have done without them. And I always tell people you have to have at least 3 mentors, 2 of whom need to be like you, and 1 who is definitely not like you, who can give you another point of view. So I was blessed to have senior African-American medicals in the Army who saw something in me early. One of them picked me up and saw me at a National Medical Association conference, and that was General Guthrie Turner, who was the treasurer of the NMA, and he started mentoring me early on. And then there were several others who picked me up at different points along my career and helped pull me along. But I didn't depend just on African American senior medical officers. I went out and sought out a couple of white medical officers too, and I said, hey, what do I need to do? And they gave me a different point of view. But all of those things helped me to really get to where I am by listening and to those stories, not repeating their mistakes, learning from them, and really climbing on their shoulders. Every single one of us has climbed on somebody's shoulders to get where we are. Nobody gets there absolutely by themselves.
That's true.
I love that.
That's a good point.
Let's talk a little bit about diversity and improving the care of Black patients. we'll start with Dr. Bailey, because you are a psychiatrist and everything that is happening in the world of what has happened in the last 2 years. I am sure before this you were busy, but man, you have been overwhelmed in this last 2 years. Um, how do we get better care, particularly for people of color who have so many reasons why they don't want to go and see a psychiatrist?
Well, clearly, I think the issues of diversity are, monumentally important. They always have been. But I think, Tamara, you're right. Increasingly now, we're in a time and a space and an era where I think the spotlight is on what I call the academic issue of diversity. What are we teaching? What are people reading about? What do we have in the, in the literature that works, and what can persons follow, or what can they actually do? I think that diversity also speaks to the variability that many individuals feel that at some point they may be at some degree of deficit or difficulty. So, in my department, for example, a person have learned and considered being a woman in a medical school being an element of diversity. Although half the medical students are female, probably only about 10% of the chairmen and the deans across the country are. I want to believe that as that discussion has grown, a greater appreciation for the plight of African Americans as an initial, group needing diversity-based consideration has also grown and improved, which I think is helpful. Rather than having many who are against the idea of diversity, even reparations, for example, perhaps may think differently when they recognize that a component of their own life is similarly predisposed. I'd also say that I think the issue of diversity has a remarkable importance in the discussion of our finances. We have to fund and finance and provide resources that are tangible and objective when we attempt to pursue certain initiatives in a diversity-based consideration. That means probably early on, that before you get to graduate school, let alone med school, earlier and earlier, we're funding programs to not only level the playing field, but to give equal and opportune access to the goods and resources necessary to grow in this regard and to be able to get into med school, to matriculate, let alone, as I think Dr. Outler pointed out, they have the wherewithal and the moxie to really get through and to graduate and move on to a successful career. The final point I make, I think the diversity also has its moment in how persons look at us, I think, through a different lens. This idea that all persons aren't exactly the same because of race or ethnicity or gender or age or other things for that matter also may make us much more of a heterogeneous society that I think overall is likely to improve many of these adversities we see. Police individual conflicts and police brutality and all the discriminatory bias in getting into schools or getting loans from banks, all kinds of areas where we see many of these deficits in human endeavor. Very often I think can be colored differently if they're through a different lens.
Mhm.
One that I think has a diversity as a strength for everybody and not an adverse concept for some. Others don't have to lose for diversity to win.
I'll ask you the same thing, Dr. Coots. As president and CEO of Holy Cross Health there in the Maryland area, diversity and also improving the care of people of color, particularly Blacks. How do we go about doing that?
Yeah, so this is great. We had the summer of social justice, which really underscored diversity, equity, inclusion, and things like that. And I really hope that we don't lose sight of that and lose focus on it, and it falls away as just sort of a thing du jour. But Ron really spoke very, very beautifully about all of this. I'll just add to it by saying, we try to do anti-racism, anti-bias training. We've got a big program on cultural competency, but you really don't get to cultural competency and true cultural understanding unless you have people live and walk those cultures every day, who can help those patients who come in who share those same cultures as well. So having a very diverse medical staff, having a diverse nursing staff, and equally importantly, having diversity at the highest levels in leadership, I think all factor in to minorities having better outcomes, really to everyone. And because at the end of the day, you have to meet people where they are, and treat them and respect them for who they are. And that's the only way we ever get true health equity. And that really starts by being diverse in our understanding and our outlook, but from the highest level down, underscoring how important it is, scrubbing all of your policies and things to remove any of the vestiges of the racism that has been so ingrained in American medicine for so long. I mean, we're at that point, and this is really a watershed point. And now everyone's working on African American maternal mortality and morbidity. Well, I mean, we've known that's a problem for a long time. And in the African American community, at Black hospitals, Black doc, we've all been working it, our entire lives. But now everybody is getting on board with it, and finally it's crystallizing. But it took a ways to get here. So we have to constantly work to keep all of this at the forefront and not let it slide back and slide behind because of politics or whatever else is going on the outside. All of that is noise that's just cluttering us around this critical issue about diversity.
So again, if you're joining us, we're talking to Powerful Black Men in Medicine. What does it take? If you have a question for Dr. Coutts or Dr. Bailey, please put it into the chat and we'll get to it right before we go. I know, Dr. Outler, that you, Dr. K, you wanted to talk to them about, I see 3 Black doctors on here. We need more. So I know you wanted to talk about that with them, and how do we do that?
Well, let me say, I want to piggyback on a very important topic. It's on the horizon. I think that Dr. Coutts and Dr. Bailey and I will, as educators in medicine, as leaders in medicine, will have to have a voice in this rising conversation, and that's the elimination of race as we discuss patient care. And as an administrator, you may have some thoughts on that, Dr. Coutts and Dr. Bailey. I'm sure as this new wave in the AMA, they've asked us not to discuss race, as if that would eliminate bias. I had an interesting conversation with a patient, with a medical student who said, you said this patient was a Black man. I said he was. And he said, well, my attending asked me not to describe patients by race. I said, well, we're not a can of peas. I said, I don't understand that. There is this overcorrection, if you will, to get what we call racial bias under control. And I know, Dr. Coutts, if this was another show, you could tell us eloquently about the history, and you also, Dr. Bailey, particularly in psychiatry, some of the historical elements of racism and the care of Black patients. But what I tried to tell the student was, listen, I understand there's this conversation about eliminating a presentation. 56-year-old man, which could be Dean, comes into the ER with chest pain. Because you did not tell me he was Black, that did not eliminate the fact that he needed to be referred to cardiac cath urgently. He had some risk factors. There was a social determinants of health that we were not acknowledging about this particular patient. When you opened that curtain, you saw a Black man, and you still did not refer him to cardiac catheterization. You sent him home and said he had gas and to eat better and see his primary care doctor. When the reality is, and we have studies that document this, is if he was a white man, you would have said, let me get an extra look at you with cardiology. Or particularly in, what we see sometimes in the military, Dr. Coutts, is the VIP. And of course, the higher your number, your stripes are, you may be expedited through a certain system. We call that being a VIP. But, this wave of trying to address racism in medicine and give Black patients better care the answer is not to eliminate the fact that you're about to see a Black patient. So don't discuss their race when talking about their care plan. And the last one is that, things like sickle cell anemia, higher rates of certain diseases within Black communities could give you a different sense of urgency for the patient that will increase their chances of surviving. So I think that, just on the tail end of what both you and Dr. Bailey were saying, Dr. Coutts, is that, we all need to wrap our arms around this issue of eliminating racism in medicine, but race can still have an important role in medicine at the same time if we use that term and that information wisely. So Dean, there was a question you had about, what we really all are here for, and that's increasing our workforce in terms of medicine. That's another way that we can get at this conversation as well, and this problem of seeing better care for Black patients.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to ask both of them just, at what point did you decide, hey, I want to be a doctor, a medical doctor? And I heard Dr. Coutts earlier talk about his father was a doctor, so he wanted to emulate his own father. But at what point, and then when did you start building your team? Because I know that that path really kind of starts around 4th and 5th grade, really to get through all the way through medical school. Now, some people have some exceptional stories, but for the most part, it really starts earlier on in life where you start getting identified and you really start excelling in school. So when did you make that decision? And then when did you build that team around you that was going to help you all the way through to get to your MD?
Yeah, so I'll start. So the first depiction I have of myself carrying a medical bag was in 5th grade, and I had to write a thing called All About Myself, and I drew myself in a blue uniform, standing next to a gurney with a Red Cross on it, holding a bag with MD on it. So I think definitively at that point in time, I said I want to be a doctor and I want to be a military doctor. My dad actually tried to dissuade me because he said, doctors are going to fall off their pedestals. If I really want you to be a financier or something like that. So I think I kind of rolled my eyes and said, no, I want to be a doctor. But, you do have to start building that coalition early. I think it is elementary school when we need to approach students. If you wait until high school, it is too late. Because by high school, you're trying to decide on college. You pretty much made up your mind. Yeah, I'm going to go into this, that, and the other thing. And you also still have people who are blocking you along the way. I remember in high school in 11th grade, we had counseling class. And the professor the teacher asked me what I want to be. And I said, well, I want to be a doctor. And he said, Coots, you're number 3 in this class. He said, with your smarts, you could really own a great janitorial service. He said, why do people always think you want to be in doctors when you are really great in the service industry? I don't know. And I said, well, I think I just want to follow my dad, who is a doctor, and several of my uncles are doctors too. None of them are janitors, and I don't have any intention of being a janitor. But because I was a little smart alecky in high school too. But nonetheless, I mean, what if I didn't have a dad or uncles who were doctors, and I was just a kid who decided in the 5th or 6th grade, I want to be one, and there was somebody who tried to stop me dead in my tracks like that too. So you do need to develop a coalition. You need to tell your parent, we need to get in these schools, show kids that there are people who look like them, who are in the health professions, so that they can be there. Because many of them may have never seen a Black doctor, a Black nurse, a Black PA, a Black dentist, whatever. You got to show them. And then once you've identified them, if they reach out to you, mentor them. Get them into summer internship programs, get them into STEM programs, get them into something, and talk to their parents and say, Johnny or Janie, they came up to me and said they want to be a doctor like me. How can I help you get them to, go into college to be pre-med and then go into med school? So I think it takes a village, and that's our tradition. When you're growing up, everyone in the neighborhood parented you. Well, if everyone in the neighborhood could parent you, everyone in the neighborhood can help you go to med school too.
Right.
Dr. Bailey, answer that question. When did you decide you wanted to be a doctor, and when did you start forming your team?
Well, I was enjoying Van's story so much. Maybe I don't know how you get a better story than that. Van's a good guy. But my story, very similar. I always wanted to be a doctor. I can't really ever think about being anything else. My parents were school teachers, and although they never really said it, at this age I can appreciate they probably always emphasized it, or there was an inclination maybe for doctors on television. My mother may have said something good in that regard. But the one single comment that really made me decide today I want to be a doctor was when I was in the 9th grade. I was in biology 1, and I was doing well. And the teacher, who's small world, Beaumont's a small place, she was my father's first cousin. Their parents were brothers. And she was supposed to be the toughest teacher in my little high school or what have you. And I was doing well. And she says, well, Ron, what are you good at, or what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm good in math. I was good in math in 8th grade or whatever. She said, well, you should be a doctor then. Now, most folks go from math to being a doctor, but Esther Bailey, with the same name, cousins, said that to me. And I couldn't really do anything other. So I'm straight through. I was pre-med the day I got to Morehouse, and I've been doing this for got to Morehouse in 82. So that's the better part of 40 years basically. I'd also say though that I think, as Van points out in this comment or his earlier one, mentorship is essential, because probably more so than when I said I want to start. I think what really matters is every time along the line when you could stop or quit, there's somebody that holds you up and pushes you forward. A professor that's really good and very, very engaged and says you can do well. I think that the names are limitless because there's so many of them. But that degree, I think, of support is just essential to stay in medicine, because by definition, it's a marathon, and there's a lot of opportunities for one not necessarily to do very, very well, or to not think you're doing well, because you're competing against a remarkably high level, highly competent, rigorous competitive group. And it gets smaller and smaller as you move up. And if you take that out of context, you might think you're not doing well when as Ben said, you're 500 out of 1,100, 500 out of 1,100, you're 500 out of 350 million, if you think about it. So it's all of the people who, whether they would be if they took the same kind of exams you take at the military academy. So that being said, I think that I'd say ninth grade, but in many regards, it's kind of in your blood for a lot longer than that. For sure.
We are almost through. This has been such an engaging hour. Just want to read some of the comments that are in the chat. Starlet Ware, thank you for joining us. She says, my son Brandon is currently in nursing school. Thank you all so much for your great transparency. So that's for you, Dr. Coots and Dr. Bailey. Jean Anthony, hi, Jean. She's in Texas. Thank you so much. I think this is Bahia, says we absolutely need to reach back, paint and share those pictures of life before the three-piece suit. So the struggle is real before we get to where we are now. Anita, thank you so much for being here, and so many others that are in the chat. Before we go, just some last thoughts. We wanted to quickly say ask the question before we go, how do we get more Blacks, particularly students, interested in medicine and getting them in med school? So, and we've got just a few more minutes to do that. So we'll start with Dr. Bailey. With you all to join at LSU for that. I'll
be very brief. I think that we all like this term mentorship. We all know about pipeline programs. We all have a church event where there's a career day. We should be in a full court press, touching each and every one of those activities every chance we can get. I think they have to see us to believe in us and believe that they can do what we've done. And the more access they have to us, and if they see us working hard, the more chances that person will go into medicine and they'll stay along the path of success.
Dr. Coots?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think being out in the community, being seen, being in as many events that you can. I mean, I'm not just a Black doctor, but I'm a Black CEO. There aren't a lot of us either. And people have to see it to believe that they can be it.
That's right.
Dr. Outler, I'll ask you that question as well, Dr.
Well, I think I agree. I think that we do need to be more conversive with our youth. And we also need to have anytime that we can make contact with a young person who's interested, to take the time to tell them about our path. I tell them I didn't get accepted to medical school my first year, but the first time I applied, but you can apply again. And so, Dr. Bailey and I know Dr. Coots, we're very open about our career trajectories, what it took for us to get into medical school, but also emphasize what it takes to get out of medical school, because we also have students that get in, but unfortunately they cannot complete the 4-year run. And there are a number of hurdles through medical school and then into residency. And you gotta, kind of set the map out for a young person, particularly, and I do believe, like you said, Dr. Coots, we have to start early, set the map out for them so they understand it is not a sprint. But you do need to get in, particularly, some people are taking gap years. I'm kind of plus minus on that. Depends on what you want to do with the time off. But understand that this is a long evolving career path. Like Dr. Bailey has said, he's been in medicine for now, 35 plus years. Dr. Coots, your career has spanned over 30 years as well. And, you've changed hats. You've had multiple leadership roles. I mean, it's just, phenomenal that you can also be the head of community engagement for LSU Health Science Center and also be head of the department, as well as be an author of so many great books. One is Gunpoint and the other one on domestic violence. I mean, that's just phenomenal, and produce over 50 plus publications. And Dr. Coots, I mean, how do you even balance being, like you said, one of few Black CEOs of a major healthcare system and, have this past obligation to the military, which I'm sure you always still, once a soldier, always a soldier, as we say. So, so our careers are long. They wear, and we wear multiple hats, and that's what we want to prepare our young people to do, to be fierce warriors in this battle to, achieve equity and better healthcare for Black patients and all patients. I mean, what they say, what's good for Black patients is good for all patients.
Could I just add one thing to that? I think One, we have to identify those students early on that are showing promise, and then two, we have to support them along that path, because a lot of times when you have a smart Black student, sometimes their own community can cast them out in a very subtle, unsubtle way that, oh, you're smart, you're trying to be white. We've all heard those things at some point in our life. And so we've got to support them. So we've got to identify, we've got to support them. We've got to protect them as they go through that path and help them build that team. If they don't have a team already that they can build on their own, help them build that team. And then we've got to celebrate them. Anytime that they can, that there's a space for them to be celebrated, celebrate them all the way through to keep them on that path. Because you all know it's not something it's not just at the end of your high school career, it's not the end of your college career, it's 4 years after that, and then your residency on top of that. So we know this is a journey, and if we celebrate them along the path, along the way of that journey, they're more apt to continue on that, instead of that understanding that this is a long mountain, a tall mountain that they have to climb. But if they've got a team around them that's going to identify, support, protect, and celebrate them, that they'll have a better chance of completing that process.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on What, How, Why Wednesdays with Dr. K, presented by myuzima.org. We are so happy to have powerful Black men in medicine. What does it take? Retired Brigadier General Dr. Norvell Van Coots. He is the president and CEO of Holy Cross Health in the Maryland area. Also, Dr. Ron Kennedy Bailey from Louisiana State University. He is the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry. We certainly appreciate you all being here this evening. Thank you so much, Ellis Dean, our producer from blackdoctor.org, for partnering with us on this. I'm your co-host, Tamara G from 101.5 Light FM in Miami, and we'll let Dr. K, take the final words.
All I want to say is thank you both for accepting my invitation to be on this show. And I thought it was such a powerful, moment to have you two come together. It's Black Men's Health Month. It's been Father's Day. Every day is Father's Day. We say you get the big piece of chicken, as they said. And so we know you get bored of the big piece of chicken at the dinner table. Thank your families for us. We know that they've sacrificed a lot. And so again, I'm very humbled that both of you decided to take time out your busy schedule to share with us your experiences and your wisdom. And so we look forward to talking again.
We enjoyed it. Excellent job.
Bye-bye.